The girl looked at her in confusion and shook her head. Jiang Li sighed, approached her, pointed to the girl, then to the house behind her, and finally gestured welcomingly. She then pointed towards the forest and waved her hand, indicating that she could go wherever she pleased. Lastly, she pointed back to the girl and then to the warm house, nodding emphatically to convey that she could return at any time. The girl seemed to grasp the meaning, murmuring softly for a while. Jiang Li finally comprehended her intent. She yearned to return to the forest for a glimpse, yet she feared that if she fled, Jiang Li would prevent her from returning. Jiang Li first offered her solace. Then, with a smile, handed her a piece of white bread. The girl, filled with delight, accepted it and, in a swift motion, transformed into a radiant leopard. The leopard cast a deep gaze at Jiang Li before turning away, its powerful hind legs launching it like a golden flash into the distant thicket. Observing her vanishing silhouette, Jiang Li felt little concern. With the corpse demon now absent, she deemed the girl's shape-shifting ability sufficient for self-preservation in the daytime forest. Consequently, Jiang Li resumed her task, retrieving her axe and pulling out the sled from in front of the house, preparing to chop down some trees as per usual. After all, with the camp level increasing, the demand for timber had risen, and she might as well gather some stones along the way. Chapter 19. A surprising activity in the early morning forest. The air was as sharp as a blade. Exhaling, Jiang Li released a puff of white vapor that was swiftly cleaved in two by a fierce swing of her axe, accompanied by a low shout. Her riftwind twin axes transformed into two fleeting shadows, striking heavily against the tree before her. The rhythmic sound of impact reverberated through the woods. Jiang Li was not the same as before. Adorned with the title of Super Unlucky Egg, all attributes 5, and wearing the Pioneer's bracers, Strength 3, Lumber Efficiency 20. Coupled with the increased attack speed from her axe, each swing sent a flurry of wood shavings into the air. The once formidable frozen wood felt as fragile as foam boards before her. The morning passed swiftly. The 20th tree, wiping the sweat from her brow. Jiang Li gazed with satisfaction at her accomplishments. In just one morning, she had felled 20 massive trees. Such efficiency, in her previous world, would have been regarded as legendary among lumberjacks. Yet, bolstered by her enhanced attributes, she hardly felt fatigued. Her arms merely warmed, replaced by a pleasant sensation akin to the exhilaration following exercise. While clearing branches, she remained vigilant of her surroundings. The system's assessments were rather rigid. Only stones of specific size and texture qualified as rock materials. Fortunately, Jiang Li's keen eyesight and strength allowed her to unearth those half-buried boulders in the snow, which ordinary individuals could scarcely move with one hand, casually tossing them aside for later use. After a flurry of activity, in addition to the towering pile of timber, she had also collected 8 suitable stones. It was nearly time to return. Jiang Li secured her twin axes at her waist and drew the makeshift sled closer. Skillfully, she bound several processed logs to the sled with rope, then draped the rope over her shoulder. The weight, several hundred pounds, felt only slightly burdensome against her impressive strength of 20. Just as she prepared to haul her spoils back to the camp, her peripheral vision caught a glimpse of a golden silhouette darting swiftly through the distant trees. Jiang Li immediately halted, gripping the axe handle with heightened caution. Before her stood a magnificent jaguar, its sleek form accentuated by the vibrant red object it seemed to carry in its mouth. It was racing towards Jiang Li with astonishing speed. Could it be that little creature? Jiang Li did not immediately lower her guard. Despite the seemingly benign appearance of the jaguar, in this unpredictable gaming world, one could not be certain that a second genuine beast would not emerge. Misidentifying it and approaching could lead to dire consequences. She squinted, remaining motionless, her body slightly sinking as she readied herself for a potential confrontation. The jaguar appeared to have spotted Jiang Li. Rather than slowing down, it seemed to grow more animated, emitting a jubilant low growl. Just as it closed the distance to less than 10 meters, a familiar burst of warm light flashed. In its place, a young girl clad in leather armor and barefoot emerged with a joyful bounce. She cradled a large bunch of luscious, crimson wild fruits. Her face illuminated by a radiant smile as she bounded towards Jiang Li. "Guggy," the elfin girl exclaimed, a cheerful greeting. Only then did Jiang Li fully relax. Unable to suppress a smile, the girl eagerly piled the vibrant fruits onto Jiang Li's sled, creating a bountiful mound that appeared irresistibly tempting against the backdrop of white snow and timber. Jiang Li's heart warmed at the sight of the fruits, though she had to admit their tartness was quite pronounced. "Thank you," Jiang Li said, reaching out to gently pat the girl's head. The girl squinted contentedly, resembling a kitten being petted. She then glanced at the rope slung over Jiang Li's shoulder and the heavy sled, tilting her head as if pondering something. In the next moment, just as Jiang Li prepared to re-grasp the rope, she felt a sudden lightness in her hand. The girl had sprawled onto the snow, and the familiar transformation light enveloped her once more. As the glow dissipated, a brown bear stood in her stead. Before Jiang Li could fully comprehend the situation, the bear instinctively rose on its hind legs, grasping the rope with its massive paws and draping it over its broad shoulders. It turned to glance at Jiang Li, its small eyes twinkling with a mix of innocence and pride, as if to say, "See, I am quite useful." Then, dropping to all fours, it exerted itself effortlessly. With a swish, the sled, which required some effort for Jiang Li to manage, was lifted with ease, gliding through the snow and carving a deep track behind it. Back to the camp, Jiang Li instructed. The brown bear pulled the sled to the clearing in front of the tool shed, and in a flash of light, transformed back into the petite girl. Her earlier commanding presence entirely vanished. Jiang Li approached the pile of logs and summoned the system interface. Detected a large amount of logs. "Would you like to recycle?" "Yes." A burst of white light enveloped the area. The once mountainous heap of logs was instantly disassembled. vanishing into neatly organized data within her backpack. Acquired. Wood X 120. Gazing at her replenished inventory, Jiangli felt a surge of joy. At that moment, a small hand reached out before her. The elfin girl held aloft the largest and reddest wild fruit, gazing at her with eager anticipation. Jiangli was momentarily taken aback, turning her gaze towards the sled laden with wild fruits, and she couldn't help but feel a mixture of amusement and exasperation. It seemed she had noticed the few fruits left untouched on her bedside table from the previous night, and assumed these were her favorite delicacies, prompting her to gather such a bounty. In truth, I do not relish this. Jiangli felt a sense of helplessness. Yet she could not bring herself to decline this gesture of kindness. She accepted the fruit and took a bite. The tart juice exploded in her mouth. It was delightful. Jiangli gave a thumbs up, though her expression was beginning to falter. The girl immediately broke into a radiant smile, her eyes sparkling as she reached for a second fruit. Jiangli hurriedly stopped her, gesturing emphatically as she explained, I appreciate it, but I cannot consume any more. You should keep these for yourself, or we could make some jam. She pointed to the girl, then indicated the pile of fruits, forming a gesture that conveyed yours. The girl tilted her head in thought, seemingly grasping Jiang Li's meaning, though not entirely comprehending it. Yet, she could sense Jiang Li's happiness, and that sufficed. Alas, if only she could understand spoken language, Jiang Li mused internally. The barrier of communication was indeed a significant challenge. It appeared she was not lacking in intelligence. Perhaps there was an opportunity to teach her the human tongue. The two of them transported the wild fruits back to the main house, gathering around the octagonal table to prepare for lunch. Jiang Li retrieved 2 slices of white bread, opened a can of beef, and after some contemplation, pulled a bottle of precious orange juice from her backpack, pouring 2 glasses. The vibrant color and sweet aroma of the orange juice captivated the elfin girl's attention. She delicately cradled the cup and took a small sip. The unprecedented balance of sweet and sour flavors instantly delighted her palate. Her eyes widened in astonishment as she gazed at Jiang Li in disbelief. The look in the girl's eyes shifted, where there had been gratitude before. Now it brimmed with admiration, even tinged with reverence. Jiang Li felt a bit uncomfortable under her fervent gaze, nibbling on her bread as she sought a topic of conversation. She gestured towards the outside and then pointed to the nearby initial storage box, mimicking a searching motion, ultimately looking at the girl with a questioning expression. Have you seen such boxes outside? The girl paused briefly before responding. She nodded, then shook her head. Subsequently, she pointed towards the depths of the forest, forming a large square with her hands, making muffled sounds, her expression becoming somewhat serious. Then, she spread her hands, mimicking a gesture of absence, revealing a hint of confusion on her face. Jiang Li, piecing together the clues, began to understand her meaning. You mean you have seen them before, but not recently? The girl nodded, then pointed to the forest, mimicking the motion of animals running, and gradually brought her hands together until only one finger remained. Jiang Li furrowed her brow. Are the animals in the forest becoming increasingly scarce? This notion made sense, as the bitter cold intensified, coupled with the emergence of the undead. Ordinary wildlife either succumbed to the frost, fell prey to the monsters, or migrated deeper into the wilderness. Resources were dwindling, a perilous sign indeed. While Jiang Li pondered future avenues for resource acquisition, distractedly nibbling on a piece of beef, an unexpected system notification suddenly reverberated in her mind. Ding! Server announcement. Attention! Survivors. After a 2-day acclimatization period, we trust you have become accustomed to the comforts of life in this snowy world. Smile. To enrich your survival journey, the system has decided to launch a surprise event at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Please ensure you are well prepared, check your equipment, and fill your bellies. After all, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Countdown begins. 19 hours 59 minutes. Jiang Li paused in her actions, taken aback by the mention of a surprise event. Glancing at the somewhat sardonic announcement, a heavy feeling settled in her heart. Upon opening the regional chat channel, the conversation that had previously revolved around lunch options shifted dramatically. A surprise event? Was the system about to bestow some benefits? Don't be naive upstairs. The so-called surprise from this wretched system usually equates to a fright. Last time they spoke of a lively night, it resulted in a horde of thousands of undead. I have a foreboding feeling that it might involve a one-on-one confrontation with the undead. Whatever it is, it surely bodes ill. Quick, reinforce the walls. Hurry, craft weapons. Jiang Li closed the panel, her brow furrowing. Though the specifics remained unclear, given the nature of this survival game, the so-called surprise was undoubtedly no leisurely affair. The system had no good intentions. She gazed out at the darkening sky, and suddenly, the half-eaten piece of bread in her hand lost its appeal. Tomorrow, it seemed, would bring yet another fierce battle. Chapter 20. The Artisan, Jiang Li. Most players shared Jiang Li's sentiments, believing the system was indeed toying with them. The regional chat channel buzzed with rapid-fire messages. Don't trust the system. It's likely another zombie siege. Absolutely. Spicy chicken leg burger. Hey, are you still selling weapons? I couldn't buy any yesterday. Thankfully, I built wooden barriers in advance. Looks like today, having no weapons is not an option. Who has a high-level workbench? I have the blueprints and all the materials, but my workbench level is insufficient. It shows I can only craft items of ordinary quality with a level 1 workbench. Don't be foolish upstairs. Who has a level 3 workbench? Upgrading requires so many copper blocks and precision parts. Can anyone gather that at this stage? I have blueprints too. But my tool station is also underleveled. I was so pleased when I first unlocked it. Is the system playing games with me? The event is tomorrow. And now I'm being choked for resources. In the game's design, acquiring blueprints was merely the first step. To transform those blueprints into tangible items, not only were materials necessary, but also facilities corresponding to the required level. It was akin to possessing